Before you scroll away, listen carefully because this message is not an accident and it did not reach you by coincidence. This is a divine interruption meant specifically for the moment you are living in right now, because God sees the battles you never told anyone about. He hears the silent prayers you whisper at night when no one is around, and today He wants you to know something powerful. Something that will change the way you look at your situation, because God is saying to you right now, the storm in your life is about to end. The chaos that surrounded you, the confusion that kept you awake at night, the weight that has been pressing on your heart, all of it has been part of a season that is now coming to a close, and even though it may have felt endless, even though there were days when you questioned whether things would ever change, God was working in ways you could not see, because storms in life are never meaningless. They are never random, they are moments where faith is tested, strength is built, and purpose is quietly forming behind the scenes, and you may not realize it yet, but the very struggle that almost broke you has been preparing you for the blessing that is about to arrive in your life, because God does not allow storms without also planning the calm that follows them, and right now the winds that once shook your life are beginning to slow down. The dark clouds that hovered over your path are beginning to move away, and the sunlight you thought you lost forever is starting to shine again. God is reminding you that every storm has an expiration date, every hardship has a limit, and every night eventually gives way to morning, and you have been in a long night, a season where answers were delayed, where people walked away, where opportunities seemed to disappear just when you needed them most. But what you did not see was that God was protecting you from paths that were not meant for you, removing people who could not go where He is taking you, and strengthening your spirit so that when the breakthrough arrives you will be ready to handle it with wisdom and humility, because the storm was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to refine you, to reshape your faith, to remind you where your true strength comes from. And now the season is shifting, the chapter is turning, and the peace you have been praying for is closer than you think. Because God is saying the storm in your life is about to end and the calm that follows will reveal blessings you never expected, moments of joy you thought were lost, doors opening where walls once stood, and suddenly the same life that felt heavy will begin to feel lighter again. The same path that looked impossible will begin to make sense, and the same heart that carried pain will start to feel hope rising again, because God has been guiding every step even when you felt alone. Even when it seemed like your prayers were disappearing into silence, He was listening, He was preparing. And He was aligning things in your favor in ways that only heaven could orchestrate. And now the time of relief is approaching, the season of restoration is beginning, and the very storm that made you cry will soon become the story that proves how strong your faith truly is, because when God decides that a storm has served its purpose, nothing can extend it, nothing can hold it in place, and nothing can stop the peace that follows. And you are standing right at the edge of that moment right now. Closer than you realize to the calm you have been waiting for, and God wants you to hold on just a little longer, because the storm in your life is about to end and the peace that follows will remind you that every tear you shed was seen, every prayer you spoke was heard, and every step you took in faith was leading you toward a future that is brighter than the past you are leaving behind. That if you are still listening to this message right now, understand that this is not random and this is not just another video passing through your screen, because God is speaking directly to the part of your heart that has been exhausted by the storm you have been walking through, and He wants you to hear this clearly. the storm in your life is about to end, and the peace that follows will make you understand why you had to endure everything that came before it, because there were moments when you felt surrounded by problems from every direction, moments when it seemed like the harder you tried the more resistance you faced, and moments when the silence from heaven made you wonder if anyone was truly listening to the prayers you whispered in the dark. But God was there in every second of it, watching, guiding, and shaping a future that your present circumstances could not yet reveal, because storms often hide the purpose that God is building behind the scenes, and while you were focused on the rain and the thunder, heaven was quietly rearranging things in your favor, closing doors that would have led you into deeper pain, delaying answers that would have trapped you in the wrong place, and strengthening your heart so that when the right opportunity finally arrives you will have the wisdom and courage to walk through it without fear, because what you thought was punishment was actually protection, what you thought was rejection was actually redirection, and what you thought was the end was actually the beginning of a transformation that is about to change the direction of your entire life. And the truth is that storms reveal things that calm seasons never could. They show you who truly stands beside you when everything is falling apart, they show you how strong your spirit really is, and they show you that the power of faith becomes most visible when everything around you feels uncertain, and you have carried that faith even on the days when you felt like giving up, even when you questioned whether things would ever improve. You kept moving forward step by step, and heaven saw that perseverance, heaven saw the tears you tried to hide from the world, and heaven heard the quiet moments when you asked God for just a little more strength to keep going, and now that strength is about to be rewarded because the storm has reached the point where its purpose has been fulfilled, the lesson has been learned, the growth has taken place, and the new chapter that follows is already beginning to unfold around you, even if you cannot fully see it yet, because God does not waste pain, and He never allows suffering to exist without eventually bringing restoration, and the same life that once felt heavy with uncertainty is slowly shifting toward clarity and peace, the confusion that clouded your mind is beginning to fade, and the opportunities that once seemed impossible are slowly aligning in ways that only divine timing could create. Because when God decides it is time for the storm to end, nothing can delay that moment, not the doubts in your mind, not the opinions of people around you, and not the obstacles that once looked too large to overcome, because the power that calms storms is the same power that is guiding your life right now, and He is reminding you that the winds that once frightened you will soon become distant memories, the rain that soaked your path will soon nourish the blessings that grow in your future, and the darkness that surrounded your steps will soon give way to a light so clear that you will finally understand why you had to walk through everything that tried to stop you, because the storm in your life is about to end, and the calm that follows will not only bring relief but also reveal the strength, faith, and resilience that God has been building inside you all along. And when you look back at this season one day, you will realize that the moment you thought you were breaking was actually the moment you were being prepared for a life that is stronger, wiser, and more blessed than anything you could have imagined when the storm first began. That if this message has reached you right now, pause for a moment and listen carefully, because this is the part many people miss when they go through a storm. They focus so much on the pain that they forget the promise that follows it. But God is speaking to your spirit right now, and He wants you to understand something powerful. The storm in your life is not only ending, but it is about to reveal a level of peace and clarity that you have not felt in a very long time, because the season you have been walking through was never meant to be permanent. It was a chapter of growth, a chapter of testing, a chapter where your faith was stretched in ways that sometimes felt unbearable, and there were nights when you asked yourself how much longer you could keep carrying the weight of everything that was happening around you. There were moments when the pressure of life made you feel like you were standing alone in the middle of a raging storm with no clear direction and no visible way out. But even in those moments when you felt forgotten, God was closer than you realized, quietly guiding you through every difficult step, protecting you from dangers you never saw, and strengthening parts of your character that could only grow through struggle, because storms have a strange way of revealing the hidden strength inside a person. They strip away the distractions, they remove the illusions, and they force you to confront the deeper parts of your spirit where true faith begins to form. And you may not have noticed it while you were in the middle of the chaos, but you have changed during this season. You have become stronger than the person who first entered the storm, your perspective has grown deeper, your patience has expanded, and your understanding of what truly matters in life has become clearer than ever before. And this transformation did not happen by accident. It happened because God was preparing you for what comes next, because the calm that follows a storm is never just about relief, it is about revelation, it is about showing you why the journey had to unfold the way it did, and soon you will begin to see small signs that the season is shifting. Opportunities will appear in places where you once saw closed doors, conversations will happen that restore hope you thought was gone, and the heavy feeling that once lived in your chest will slowly begin to lift as peace takes its place. Because the moment when a storm begins to fade is often quiet at first. It does not always arrive with dramatic announcements or sudden miracles. Sometimes it begins with subtle changes, a new sense of calm in your heart, a small breakthrough that reminds you things are finally moving forward, or an unexpected blessing that shows you God has been working all along. And when those moments start appearing, you will realize that the chapter you thought would never end has finally reached its turning point. Because God never promised that storms would not come into your life, but He did promise that they would not last forever, and the very storm that once made you question everything will soon become the proof that your faith carried you through the darkest season and into a brighter future. And when the calm fully arrives, you will look back at this time with a different perspective. You will see that every delay protected you from something that was not meant for you. Every disappointment redirected you towards something better, and every tear you shed became part of the story that strengthened your spirit in ways comfort never could. Because God is not only ending the storm in your life, He is also preparing a season of restoration where the peace you feel will be deeper than before, the joy you experience will be more meaningful than before, and the opportunities that come your way will reflect the growth you developed while surviving the hardest chapter of your journey. And one day you will realize that the storm you once feared was actually the moment that revealed how powerful faith can become when everything around you seems uncertain, because the storm in your life is about to end, and the calm that follows will remind you that God was guiding you every step of the way, even when the sky above you looked dark and the road ahead seemed impossible to see. Right now, at this very moment while you are listening to these words, something is shifting in the unseen places of your life. Something that you may not be able to see yet, but you will soon begin to feel, because God is saying to you clearly that the storm you have been fighting through is reaching its final moments, and the calm that follows it is already beginning to move toward you. And the reason this message is finding you now is because heaven knows how tired you have been, how many times you held yourself together when everything inside you wanted to fall apart. How many nights you lay awake thinking about the problems that seemed too big to solve, and how many days you walked forward carrying pain that no one around you fully understood, but even in those silent battles where it felt like you were standing alone, God never once left your side. He was watching every tear you wiped away, hearing every prayer that came from your heart, and strengthening you in ways that you did not even realize at the time. Because the truth about storms is that they often make people feel abandoned when in reality they are the very moments when God is working the closest to us, shaping circumstances, redirecting paths, and preparing blessings that could not arrive until the storm had finished doing its work. And you may have wondered many times why the struggle lasted so long, why the answers did not come when you expected them, and why certain doors closed right when you thought they were about to open. But the truth that is slowly being revealed now is that every delay had a reason and every hardship carried a purpose, because God was not simply allowing you to suffer. He was building something within you that comfort alone could never create. He was building resilience in your spirit, clarity in your mind, and faith in your heart that would become the foundation for the next season of your life. And now that season is approaching faster than you think, because when a storm has fulfilled its purpose, God does not allow it to remain any longer than necessary. The winds begin to slow, the thunder begins to fade, and the same sky that once looked dark begins to open up again. And in that moment people often realize that they are stronger than they ever believed they could be, and that is exactly what is happening in your life right now. You are stepping out of a chapter that tested your limits and into a chapter that will reveal your strength. And the peace that follows will not simply erase the memory of the storm, but it will transform it into a reminder of how far you have come and how faithful God has been through every moment of the journey. Because there were days when you thought the pressure would break you, but instead it shaped you into someone wiser and more determined than before. There were moments when you felt like giving up, but something deep inside you kept pushing you to take one more step forward, and that quiet determination was not just your own strength, it was God guiding you through the darkness even when you could not see His hand. And now that same guidance is leading you into a calmer season where the lessons of the storm will begin to reveal their value, where the struggles that once confused you will start to make sense, and where the blessings that follow will feel even more meaningful because you understand what it took to reach them, because peace always feels deeper after you have experienced chaos, and joy always feels brighter after you have walked through darkness. And the life that is unfolding ahead of you will carry a sense of gratitude and strength that could only be created through the journey you have just survived. And one day you will tell the story of this season not as a time that destroyed you, but as the moment that transformed you into the person you were meant to become. Because God is saying clearly that the storm in your life is about to end, and the calm that follows will remind you that every moment of pain was seen, every prayer was heard, and every step of faith you took during the darkest days was guiding you closer to a future that is far more peaceful and purposeful than the past you are now leaving behind. That if you are still here listening to this message, understand that there is a reason your heart has stayed connected to these words until this moment, because God wants you to hear this final reminder clearly and deeply. The storm in your life is about to end, and the season that follows will carry a kind of peace that you once thought was impossible to feel again. Because there was a time not long ago when everything around you felt uncertain. When it seemed like life kept placing obstacles in your path one after another, when the weight of disappointment, confusion, and unanswered questions felt heavier than anything you had carried before, and during those moments it was easy to wonder whether things would ever truly change. It was easy to question whether the pain would ever give way to peace. But what you did not realize while walking through those difficult days was that God was slowly guiding you through a transformation that could not have happened any other way, because storms are not just about the struggle they bring, they are also about the strength they build, the clarity they reveal, and the faith they awaken deep inside the human spirit. And during this season of your life you were learning lessons that will stay with you long after the storm has passed, lessons about patience when answers take time, lessons about resilience when life pushes you beyond your comfort zone, and lessons about trust when the path ahead is hidden by darkness. And even though the journey has not been easy, you have continued to move forward step by step, sometimes slowly, sometimes with uncertainty, but always with a small spark of hope that refused to disappear completely, and that hope is about to be rewarded because the chapter you have been living through is reaching its conclusion, the tension that filled your days is beginning to fade, and the calm you have been praying for is closer now than it has ever been before, because God never allows a storm to last forever, and He never forgets the people who kept their faith even when circumstances tried to shake it, and you were one of those people. You kept believing even when doubt whispered in your mind, you kept hoping even when disappointment tried to convince you to give up, and you kept moving forward even when the road ahead looked uncertain, and those quiet acts of faith did not go unnoticed. Heaven saw every moment when you chose courage instead of surrender, and now that courage is leading you into a new season where the storm will no longer define your story, instead it will become the chapter that proves how strong your spirit truly is, because soon you will begin to notice changes that confirm the shift is real, doors that once seemed locked will start opening unexpectedly. Conversations will happen that restore relationships or create new opportunities, and the heavy atmosphere that once surrounded your life will begin to lift as peace gradually replaces the tension you carried for so long, and in those moments you will realize that God was never late. He was simply working on a timeline that allowed every piece of your future to fall into place at the right moment, because blessings that arrive too early can sometimes harm us more than they help us, but blessings that arrive at the right time have the power to transform everything, and that right time is approaching quickly in your life now. The storm that tested your patience is losing its strength, the winds that once shook your confidence are calming, and the light that once felt distant is beginning to shine directly on the path ahead of you, and when you finally step fully into this calmer season you will see how much you have grown through the process, how much wisdom you gained through the struggle, and how much faith was strengthened during the moments when you had no choice but to trust God completely. And that realization will fill your heart with a deeper sense of gratitude than you have ever known before, because you will understand that every challenge you faced had a purpose and every delay carried a hidden protection that guided you toward a better outcome than the one you originally expected. And as the storm fades behind you, the future ahead will begin to look brighter and more peaceful than it has in a very long time. Because God is reminding you one final time through this message that the storm in your life is about to end, and the calm that follows will not only bring relief but also reveal the beautiful truth that you were never alone in the storm. You were being guided, protected, and prepared for a future that is stronger, wiser, and more blessed than the life you were living before the storm ever began. Before this message ends, listen to this carefully, because this may be the exact reminder your heart needed today. God is saying that the storm you have been walking through is reaching its final moments, and the calm you have been praying for is closer than it has ever been before, because there was a time when you felt surrounded by problems that seemed too heavy to carry and too confusing to understand, moments when you wondered why everything was happening at once and why the answers you needed felt so far away. But even during those difficult days, God never lost sight of you for a single second. He saw every silent prayer, every tear you wiped away when no one else noticed, and every moment when you chose to keep moving forward. Even though your heart was tired, and now the season is shifting in your favor because storms are never meant to last forever, they arrive for a moment, they test our strength, they shape our faith, and then they move away to make space for a calmer and brighter chapter, and that chapter is beginning to unfold in your life right now. Slowly but surely the tension that once surrounded you is fading, the confusion that once filled your mind is clearing, and the same life that once felt heavy is preparing to reveal new opportunities, new peace, and new blessings that will remind you why you had to walk through everything that came before this moment, because God was never punishing you, He was preparing you, preparing your heart to appreciate the peace that is coming, preparing your mind to recognize the opportunities that are about to appear, and preparing your spirit to step into a future that is stronger than the past you are leaving behind. And as this message comes to its end, remember this simple truth that God wants you to carry with you today: the storm in your life is about to end, the calm is approaching, and very soon you will look back at this season and realize that the moment you thought you were breaking was actually the moment God was quietly building a stronger, wiser, and more blessed version of you.